Everyone, can you guys hear me? No, that's good. I'm in meetings. Some couple people are rolling in, but um, let me send you guys the meeting minutes if you don't have them already, or not the meeting minutes. Sorry, the agenda. Um, Here we go. Um, I think it's gonna be a smaller group of people today. It's the start of school, so BPS they let me know that they are gonna try to make it. I told them fingers crossed. I really want to see them in this discussion, but it is unfortunate. It's the first day of school. So, can you guys hear me? Okay. Okay. Perfect. Um. Okay. Well, I think we have everyone. Uh, Yeah. So let's just go ahead and get started. Um. Did you guys see the new meeting minutes that I sent out? You guys able to review that? Um. Okay. I think we're with one person off, but it's okay. No big deal. Okay. Did you guys find that this format was was better in identifying potential action items and things to move forward? Okay. Okay, great. Um, so are we good to approve up? Yeah. Okay, cool. So action items from the last meeting. I know Dory said that she was gonna talk to some of her colleagues in the digital access department. I'm totally butchering it. But I'm not sure. She's not here, so I'm not sure if that happened. So I guess I can reach out to her separately to
Yeah,
figure out if that
so-
works.
sorry, this is Beth.
Oh, are you
Yeah, she's on vacation, and she's been out
okay?
actually almost all the time since the last meeting. She's
Okay.
at the end of this week. I know she did say that she was going to do that, but she was not able to do that yet.
Okay. No worries. It's just as long as we know where we are with that. That's fine. As long as whenever she comes back from vacation, we can always check in and go move forward from there. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Uh Anything else? I'm trying to pull up the meeting minutes really quickly. I know that I said that I would reach out to communications. And I did talk to them, but um we haven't moved forward on anything yet because we don't have a project um or we're not done with that Google form that we were working on. So we haven't done anything yet, but they are aware that we're trying to start reaching out to archivists. And they are ready whenever we are okay with that draft of the Google form. Um, I don't know, we can maybe talk about that at the end of the call if we still have some time, but yeah, I just wanted to update you guys on that. And then yeah, I don't think I think this is everything that was on that was the action items for this meeting. So yeah, I think maybe I'm missing something, but no. Okay, I think we're good. So that's the updates from last meeting, and we're moving on from there. And if we have time, Caleb, we can review the form, but if not, it's okay to keep it for the next meeting. Okay. So Bob, if you want to talk a little bit about, your idea and why you wanted to bring this curricular discussion to the group, that would be great.
Sure. It just occurred to me that we have in the city a lot of tremendous historical sites, historical resources, and that we should make it our goal to have every school child in the city visit them during the course of their years. I know a lot of towns do this. Towns that only have one historical site, every student in the town visits them. We have dozens, and I thought a really valuable thing this commission could do is make this a city policy, having the city make sure kids get to these places. There's a tremendous program that the downtown sites have. Initially, it was People and Places. Now it is called um, Place-Based Boston, bringing kids from the city and the immediate suburbs to them. This is a little different. I was really envisioning that that's a fine program. I was really envisioning this more of a way of connecting students with places like the Shirley Eustace House, the Dillaway Thomas House, the Pierce House, the Blake House, the Loring Greeno House, Brook Farm, other places in the neighborhoods where the students are living, so they know that this is their history and they're connected to it. So that's generally my idea. And since we spent a lot of time talking about timelines and archives, and if we tried to spend the same amount of time framing a curriculum, A, we would never do it, and B, schools already have curriculum. This would be something to add to it and something to make it part of every child's education, so that the sites will be sustained. Kids will grow up knowing what's in the city that they live in as they grow up, and will continue cherishing them. So that's my idea. And I'm happy to discuss it more and hear ideas that others have.
I think that's a fantastic idea, Bob. Thanks for bringing that forward. On the matter of not having folks from BPS to necessarily help us out with the curriculum portion, I'll offer something and we'll see what the committee thinks here. But the Massachusetts Historical Society is the state sponsor of National History Day. And so we do have a pretty robust education program, and they have helped to develop curriculum connected with not just resources here, but also resources and other sites in the city and in Massachusetts in general. If you think it would be useful, we could potentially see if one of them could join us for our next meeting, barring any participation from understandably swamped teachers and BPS officials. So that's just something to offer. I think it's great on the matter of visiting historical sites. There's really nothing like being in the place, seeing it, touching history. It's really exciting for kids in many ways. And I guess we'll just have to, as we come up with a list, figure out what capacity these places have for school sizes, when they're open to the public. I mean, there are sites that are closed during the winter months and whatnot, but this is a very exciting potential. So thanks, Bob.
Right. I also think, by the way, the MHS should also be included on this list because it's a tremendous resource. And the Commonwealth Museum at the State Archives, the Secretary of State's office offers a bus to every school in the Commonwealth to visit that museum once a year. And, these things aren't without cost. As, Kid mentioned, the sites have a capacity. And we're both encouraging people to visit, but also supporting the educational work that the sites are doing. And it would be great to have more kids from Boston participating in History Day as well.
I think it would be a great idea. We can coordinate and have someone come to the next meeting if you guys think that would be, something that's a good idea. But I like it. I think it would be great to have somebody come from MHS and talk about National History Day and how we can better utilize it for our students.
But also their resources in helping to develop curriculum as well. Sorry.
Donna.
So I'm a BPS parent. And we have been lucky to be in a school where they do a lot of experiential education. But still BPS. And my kids over the period of their elementary school, both went to the African American Meeting House, went to the Old State House, went to Leventhal, and, went to a bunch of other sort of like cultural heritage. They went to the MFA. And like Bob said, it's a wonderful opportunity for them to be able to do that. But what I heard from the teachers, at least the elementary school teachers, and of course, I work in this era, and I'm like, well, there's 1,000 resources. How about you look up, a million different things? And they only knew what they knew, right? Unless somebody from the Boston Ballet came to the Dante Alighieri Montessori School on Paris Street in East Boston, they wouldn't know that those things exist. So I think, one of the things that, we might be helpful in this sort of like information gathering is to find all of the sources of, you can come to my place and here are the resources we have from all of the historic institutions, because I don't know if my school, and again, this is a very, very small, tiny little school in East Boston. I don't know if they knew about the MHS's availability for the little ones to come. And so I just think, and of course, everything for me is coming back to this wonderful spreadsheet that we've been putting together of the different available archives. But I do think there is a tab for historic houses on this, and of course, there's some overlap in the main tab as well. I think that, one of the things that I was talking about with their, elementary school teacher, but then of course, neither of my kids are in elementary school at this point, as of today, is sort of things that are super easily accessible that are very close to the school itself. So exactly, like Beth was saying, what is particularly around your school? So, when I was looking around, there are all sorts of, plaques around my kid's school that commemorate all of the various different synagogues that used to exist in this particular section of, so, are there things that, using the mapping function of the BPL that we could do to make like a history resource per school. And I know that's pretty ambitious, but to get there as a start is to do the kind of thing that that Joe was talking about, which is like a history audit. Where are all of the historic buildings? Who's got open hours, who's got a school program, and who is it accessible to?
Yeah, Joanna, that's exactly right. I think this is, and it's like number 3 in our agenda. It's something that, Bob and I talked about, but like a places to visit in the neighborhood fact sheet, but map or something. That's exactly right. I think it makes sense for us to be aggregators because BPS teachers are so busy for them to have something. I think Bob was saying that in the work that he was doing, the research he was doing, there are like sites that are like 0.25 miles away from the schools that he was looking at. So yeah, I think in part it would be great to build on what we already have with those historic buildings. Maybe we do it by neighborhood, and you guys tell me maybe by like history era or by age group, and to see and then also categorized by accessibility through public transportation, or if they offer transportation, if it's easy to walk to tag. Yeah, exactly, Beth, exactly. I think that'd be great. Sorry, kid.
These are fantastic ideas. This reminded me, by the way, that some of our institutions are already sort of doing this. It's happening right now. This is the archives crawl. So we've got Mass Historical, Burns Library, BPL, Northeastern University Archives. You're supposed to visit different archives, and there's a little stamp map, mark where you've been. This is fun. It's exciting. It gets you to explore different resources in different neighborhoods. This is something we're already working on together, and certainly can be adapted to a specific school area or region of the city.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. That reminds me of the BPL passport program. I think I think it's really fun. It's interactive. So I think it would be great to have in collaboration potentially, right, with the archives farm, with the BPL passport program, to have something for kids to put in their hands. It says stamp or sticker to whatever, and say like, oh, we got to visit this and it was in our neighborhood. And it could be a thing where we work with that archives program with MHS, with BPL, and with the local sites as like a partnership. to say, hey, like we want kids to visit the sites, to know their neighborhood, to say, I didn't, you know, because a lot of the times we hear, oh, I didn't know that happened here. I didn't know I had someone so close to my neighborhood. So I think there's a lot of merit in not only becoming that aggregator, but also not necessarily aggregator for all of those, maybe if it doesn't exist, but because something like the crawl already exists, maybe we can do more research into if other things like that exist for BPS students and aggregate from there and then add what's missing. Because I think it's a great opportunity for it to be an actual part of a program, or a programming thing that they can do at school. Yeah, so I mean, I opened what Giordano said with the 4-story buildings. Is this new? I for some reason didn't see that. This is great. I think it would be great even if we could do potentially, we can do a dump like this, and then instead of having it just like Boston or Dorchester, we can do like a drop down or like a click thing where you can select the neighborhood, and we can sort it that way, and then we can do the more filtered, like that's the same by age or resources by age, things like that. So, I mean, I think for the next step for that to be a thing, I think you guys tell me what you think. I'm thinking we can utilize this historic buildings spreadsheet to add more information there, and I can organize it, and we can also see if we have any more things like if they have an online version of that, if you would send that to me, that would be great, because then I can start also aggregating those existing kind of programs, and yeah, so I think we can start there.
I actually
Now I'm
have
thinking,
no idea who put together the data dump. It may have even been me. I, that I just sort of like cribbed from Wikipedia, but it's like, it's just a drop in the bucket. There's almost nothing. These are just ones that had Wikipedia articles.
okay. It was you. I just checked. Thank you.
Okay.
It's still good work.
But it's, I
So
mean,
I
but
think
compared to, you know, for historic buildings, like it's nothing. And my guess is that Landmarks actually knows a lot of these places. So
Mhm.
would it be possible for them to give us a list?
It would actually, yes. Actually, I think I have one
Okay,
that I can easily access. So I can go through what they have, just like what they've landmarked, and or also what's been petitioned, because
yeah.
just what they've landmarked isn't necessarily reflective of everything historic. So if I'm it's publicly available, so I'm sure that I can just add that into our documents. I was gonna say, Kayla, I want to know what you think about potentially adding a question for the archive form. You know, the archive form where we're asking like, what's your tag, what's your whatever. If they have, I know we're asking them for we're not asking for hours, but if they have potential for field trip or capacity for field trips, what do you think?
Basically, yeah, that was my question. Do we want to start the list ourselves or have a question on this survey and then we can go in and fill in the blanks of maybe people that didn't get the survey or whatnot. But whoever did this data dump, it seems like a lot of work to kind of do the whole city. And I just didn't know if we wanted to spend our time on that or something else.
You mean, what do you mean?
This survey that we're doing that we worked on
Yep.
last, do we want to just add a question that says,
Well,
can
I
you
think,
host?
yeah, I think that we're also kind of talking about two different things here, because the archive survey was, I think we need to think a little bit more about who the intended audience is, and what kind of questions we want to ask them. Because I mean, if there was a question just on a form that said, do you take field trips? The answer would definitely be no for us because of a lot of different reasons. But, we do selectively work with high schools to do, and occasionally in an elementary school to do teaching with archives sessions with them. and also community-based organizations who have teen programs. So I think we do need to, and also, historic houses, yes. Dillaway Thomas has a program, Lorraine Greeno probably has a program, but a lot of like Malcolm X Little is not going to have a program because it's not open to the public. So I think that we're headed in the right direction, but I do think we need to be thoughtful about who we're asking what.
I also don't think we have to word it so directly, like, can you host a field trip? I think we could say something like, are you able to collaborate with a school, or leave it more broad, because it's not going to be just a survey that spits out answers that is available to the public. We're
Mhm.
going to be able to monitor the answers and kind of we can put them into categories ourselves, like maybe willing, definitely no, only open on weekends, stuff like that. But as like a general starting point, it might not hurt to just see if there is even a hint of a potential for collaboration.
I also really like looking at the idea of looking at the link that Beth just put in the chat. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of, we have 150,000 digital objects in our digital repository. Is that useful for teachers? Probably not, because they don't really know what to look for. So I think, yeah, we need to having a BPS specific BPS tell us what it is that they need to know about each of our programs in order to attract BPS teachers might be helpful. And to have, and then of course, trying to get BPS to come and join us on this at this meeting so that or somebody from BPS so that they can help us navigate how to make something like this happen.
Thinking too
Yeah,
about sort of the original charge for this group around particularly telling underrepresented stories. And, again, I think the more that we can tailor the types of resources we're offering, maybe the more useful. And I say this as a former high school teacher. I hear you, Jordana, also about digital. Like, it is very difficult to take kids on a field trip. It's not even just expense necessarily. It is taking kids out of class. It is negotiating with other teachers. It is all of that. It is an enormous undertaking. So it is not a thing that you do lightly or often. But I think there are other ways also to understand, like, do people come into the classrooms? Are there digital, curricula, not just here's a whole bunch of digital objects, but what kind of curriculum do you have? Or I think that might be useful, but it really does need to be targeted specifically by age is really important. I think, trying to handle, I think K through 12 is actually 5-10 different audiences. Like, it's not elementary students and high school students. It's like, it's really different. And I think trying to go too broadly means that we're going to like scattershot everything. So I think maybe being a little more targeted, like, what if we did focus on, middle and high school? And I'm not saying that's the answer, but I'm saying, like, it would be more useful to people rather than trying to do a touch of everything to say we really want to focus. There are 125 schools in BPS, but actually only X number of them are high schools. And we focus like that. To me, feels actually more useful and really targeting, like, how are we reaching out and talking to teachers. Like, it would be, I think it's important not just to talk to administrators, but to talk to teachers. The second thing that I feel like I'm hearing is I'm just wondering, and maybe this is a more a broader question for this group, but how much of this focus is around Revolution 250, and how much of this is around place-based history of Boston, which is much broader and I think more aligned with 2030. And if we're going to focus on colonial revolutionary things, that is very different then focusing on this is the history of your community, including a lot of history that happened after, those periods of time. And so I'm just wondering sort of maybe what the larger groups are doing too, but some of this is not as specific to dates. And so I think again, some clarity around that might be really helpful.
Yeah, I agree, Beth. I think it makes a lot of sense to consider not just field trip, but resource instead of features, but resources to engage with. I think speakers, digital, I think all of those things are great options. Also because it includes accessibility, so it's not just about the burden of organizing a field trip, but it's also about that inclusivity aspect.
I think,
I do think that sorry.
no, go
ahead.
on, Nancy.
Okay. No, I think it does make sense to target by age. K-12 is massive and they are all they would be engaging differently with everything. So I think it makes sense to target specific groups. When you were talking about engaging with teachers, I'm thinking potentially later on down the line, if we get a significant ways away with this, we can have a session where we invite teachers to give feedback, to communicate, to work with us on what they think makes sense for this. And in terms of how much from Boston 400 or Rec 250, we might focus on one and then have that be like it's a 2026 school year thing for Rep 250 or 2025, whatever. And then we have one for Boston 400 that comes out later that's a little bit less specific, but or this can be a Boston 400 project.
Yeah, I'm seeing it more as a Boston 400 thing. And I think it doesn't matter that much. I mean, and I think rather than starting with the schools, maybe what we should do is start with the historical sites that we know about. Each of them that's up and running has an education person who's been designing curriculum and things for students to do. And find out from them what they're offering before we go to teachers to say, hey, would you want to go to this place? And also, so we start with the ones who are in operation already and hope then that places like the Malcolm X House or the Donald McKay House or other historic sites that are trying to become operational then will become part of this and be able to tell this fuller story of Boston. So I think that's, as I was thinking about this, not that we are designing field trips or we are designing curriculum, but knowing what these sites are doing that we don't know about because we haven't asked them. And I think having the resource so that then teachers can look at this menu and say, gee, I didn't know this place was around the corner. Or I didn't know that, let's say Giordano, the Northeastern Archives developed some kind of thing that you can send to the schools. I mean, those are the kinds, didn't know that the Mass Historical Society has all this really great stuff. That's really having us provide this menu that then the teachers will be able to work with. A good teacher knows how to use something or knows what to do if you're visiting an historical site. Rather than us telling them, hey, this is what you should do, or even necessarily asking the teachers, what's your dream, but telling them what is available now. And then hopefully a dream will be built from that. The dreams in the minds of the kids will be able to visit the sites and see what is in their neighborhood or in their city.
I'm thinking as an actionable item for me, I can get those Boston landmarks and their petitions and send those out. And maybe I can put them, they probably already have them in an Excel or like a spreadsheet format. So I can get those, sort them by neighborhood. And then if this, what you sent, Beth, if there's like a school year 2024, so if there's a more recent one, I can also go in and by neighborhood, I can say, okay, these schools are in this neighborhood. These are, and match that in so we have a more comprehensive, at least something that's more comprehensive to engage with. And then we can then figure out potentially what our next steps are. If our next steps are then to reach out to those places that have, or maybe we mark the places that we know are museums or already have that education person. So I'm writing this down for myself so I don't forget.
So I
And
think we should,
then,
oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, yeah, no, I agree with that. We should aim at 400 and have a broader scope here, but maybe 250 gives us the opportunity to develop sort of a prototype. I mean, it's a short time span. We do know institutions that are connected to the revolution that do have education programs that are set up to accommodate folks. Old North has an education person. I think Paul Revere does too. Revolutionary Spaces. I mean, start small with what we know and be able to show this blueprint to other groups that we would like to participate in the years going forward. Just a thought.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, the partners for the Place-Based Boston are the Museum of African American History, Boston National Historical Park, Old North, Revolutionary Spaces, the Paul Revere House, and the Constitution Museum. So they kind of have something in place. And then I think the other sites, like the Pierce House in Dorchester, has education people, and the others do as well. So building on what's there, I agree, starting small rather than trying to be all encompassing and bring others in as we kind of know what we're doing or what we see the outcome might be. And also sparing Hennessy from, it seems like Hennessy keeps saying, okay, I'll contact, and we're giving you a full-time career now.
Yeah. But at the very least to start, I think I don't, mind putting that together. Of course, we can with a sheet. It's easy to separate a 250 and a larger 400, just so that we can have that smaller prototype, and something to make a little bit more malleable. And Jordana just put those action items in the chat. Thank you. That was great. And looking at it, are there things that we think we should be adding to that, or is this a good place to start?
I think it's a good list to start, especially if we continue to, I think we probably need to break out the first sheet in our combined sheets into various different programs, although, you can organize this however our little librarians' hearts, however we want to. But, thinking about like who's got education programs, I mean, and who's got open hours or who is got online information so that schools could just walk down the street and visit it. I do think that mapping this is very important. Mapping these things are, especially the kinds of things that are pretty static, like buildings, so that it wouldn't necessarily have to be updated very frequently. Buildings and organizations don't change very often. But I do think that if we're working, I would like for us to consider ourselves, even in this piecemeal way, to be working towards historic resources audit to the city. And of course, if we had $1 zillion, which of course we do not, we could hire somebody to do this, right? And they would be able to go through and find all the lists and talk to all the people. And we just don't have anybody to do that right now unless the city gives us some cash. So, but if we're working towards, towards at least a line in the sand for historic assets in the city, I think that's a good goal. Because, once we have a robust set of historic assets, even plaques, where are the historic plaques all located? Then at least, we can point those things out to the teachers in a very, very granular way. So anyway, if we just start collecting that with an eye towards this audit idea and then also this teacher resource idea, and not neighborhood based, but I feel very strongly about it being proximity to school based. Like just for using my kid's school example is, you know, they're the Mary Ellen Welch Greenway. Who's Mary Ellen Welch? You know, what was there before the Greenway? Okay, it was the narrow gauge railway. What was there before the narrow gauge railway? A swamp. You know, I mean, it's that kind of thing that, you know, teachers can just sort of like look at the site and then pull out a map and, you know, kids sort of pour over them. So, I mean, there's just like,
Yeah.
and this is literally next door to my kid's school. And I'm sure every school in the whole city has proximity to a whole bunch of historical resources just because of the nature of it. So I think those are the two things that I would like us to consider as like, even if these are huge pie in the sky ideas, right? Inching towards that with the resources that we have, I think is a helpful way to build for 300. And I love the Kid, your idea of the pilot blueprint for 250, because, you know, we know, at least Bob knows, I don't actually know, but, you know, Bob knows a lot of the downtown organizations that already do colonial and revolutionary history. And if we consider, you know, thinking about adding in partnerships for Historic Boston, that's really focusing significantly on Native histories, and uncovering and really paying attention to those things. And then we think about, you know, adding in some material around the work that the folks at Tufts are doing around the enslaved people of Boston, and also that Joe Bagley is doing. So, you know, if it's not just sort of like all fifes and drums, and we bolster these resources with the underrepresented communities as a model for 250, I think, you know, we're getting someplace, even if for 250 we have a very short timeline. You know, but also that we're working towards this larger plan. Not that there's anything wrong with five syndromes, I like them.
No, I think that makes sense. I think we're all circling around the same ideas. So, you know, now that I'm also thinking, you know, I think what you're talking about with the historic resources audit, I think it makes a lot of sense to potentially have, even if it's something small, for us to have like, hey, we worked on this Google form, we're actively collecting this information. And then also, hey, we're also working on this neighborhood sites fact sheet, so that people, or this school-based, right, fact sheet, so that people can start engaging curricula. And that we're doing this is part of our memo, so you can see what we're working on. We also think we need X amount for an audit. We need X amount for this engagement. And I think that we can work towards that, to have, you know, not necessarily completed ideas, but definitely say we have a prototype of something that we're already engaging the community with, and we think it can be really powerful. But because we need that historical audit, right? This is what we need. I also think that you're absolutely right about the markers. I don't know that there's something in the city that, correct me if I'm wrong, that's tracking all of
You know,
those markers.
I think it's public art, actually.
Okay.
And we meaning the Boston Research Center, which I'm preferably a little bit involved with, is I think that the city has that info someplace in public art.
Yeah, because I know Parks has markers, but the Parks Commission oversees those. So I already know there's potentially some multiple departments we might have to reach out to get a comprehensive enough a list. So okay, that's good to know. I can look into public art and also Parks and see if there's any other group that's doing those flags. I don't, to my knowledge, that is not the Landmarks Commission. Though that potentially could be a recommendation that we make, that there should probably be a landmarking process for the landmarks commission. That's, you know, that has plaques. Okay, that'd be great. Thank you both. Okay, so I mean, I think the next thing that we had was funding opportunities, transportation opportunities, sponsorships, and partnerships. So if you guys, if we want to pivot to that, or I think we've touched on it a little bit, but if you guys want to pivot to that, we can talk about that. If you guys think that we should not get ahead of ourselves, that is understandable, but I did want to open that conversation.
It's strangely quiet when the question of money comes up.
Yeah, which I understand. Which is part of why I think that I said that I want to write that, have that memo with those prototypes written up, so you could say, hey, we have something and we're asking for this collaboration, this sponsorship. But yeah, if we don't have anything, then you know we can save it for another meeting. But I did want to, you know.
I think the last all commission meeting was very eye-opening for me in terms of large money situations and how other cities are doing these kinds of things. And how, you know, I don't think that the Timelines, Archives, and Curricula Committee can start asking for sponsorships for anything. I think that it's really up to Chief Sweat and the mayor to come up with whether or not this is a priority, and then somebody who's good at that kind of sponsorship, who has skills and large donor fundraising to work on that on behalf of the commission.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So I wanted to say that there's that internal group that I discussed in that larger meeting, where it's, you know, economic opportunity, partnerships, neighborhood services, special events, and a couple other people. I know that David Leonard comes to those sometimes when he's available. I think that they're working on a memo to the mayor so that the city starts to shape up a plan. I know that their focus is obviously tourism, so a lot of that is like event based, but we're having another session, and I have of course said, you know, we need curricula on there, we need archival access there, digitization, things like that. But we're having another meeting, and I think if it makes sense, because they're trying to flesh out, and we're having another meeting, me and them, but I also invited them to come speak in October so that you guys could review the memo and give feedback. But I wanted to say, if it makes sense, I can follow up with them after this meeting and say, hey, one of the goals that is coming out of Timelines, Archives, and Curricula is this ask for some funding for that historical resource audit. And that way, it may be too early to talk about sponsorships, but at least the city knows we are thinking about it funding in a specific way for the charges that we're undertaking.
Yeah, I think that Joe actually put together something for the city on this historical audit at some point. So ask him, he probably has, my guess is that he probably has like either a proposal or some language about describing what that looks like. And if he doesn't, then I'm happy to lend some time to helping craft that.
All right, I will do that. I think he's out, but not a big deal. I will follow up with him to see. I think I saw something similar actually, but I just want to make sure that we have it handy, because I think that would also be a great document for him to have. Okay. Okay, so that being said, if we don't have anything else, if we have other relevant things, then I can let you guys go a little bit early, and then we can just, before I let you guys go, we review what we have decided on for some action items. And then we can go from there. So I'll get the landmarks and the petitions as a spreadsheet, and I'll send those out. And I'll just do this quickly myself. I'll sort that by neighborhood potentially, or by BPS, like by schools. And I will double check with the website that Beth sent me to see if there's another one. And then we want to aim for 400, but if we're doing a 251 first, it serves as a good prototype for ourselves, and also to a prototype to show to others, which I think makes total sense. Mapping is TBD, but will be important part of this process. And then I will check with Public Arts and the Parks Commission about their plaquing process, or to see if they have a list of plaques that they have available. And Beth said that she will check in with the Map Center, which is great. And then I will be checking in again with partnerships who's running a 250th memo to the mayor about the historical resources audit, and I'm checking in with Joe about his documents. Okay.
Hennessy, if I sent you information about the archive scroll, which unfortunately started a couple of days ago, and I was on vacation last week, so I never got around to sending it around. Would you be willing to send it around to the full commission?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Sure. All right. Do we have any final thoughts?
Yeah, can I just, yes, the People in Places program, which is now Place-Based Boston, just to give us some perspective, was started in the mid or early 80s. Means it's really an outgrowth of the bicentennial. So just think about what we're planning to do is something that will be in place for the Revolution's 300th and Boston's 450th. So thinking that we need to hurry up and get something done for the 250th or even the year 2030 is really looking at this in the wrong way. We're really looking at doing something that is going to develop over the next half century or more.
Good, I think I saw your hand up.
And did you want me to see if someone from our education team can join us at the next meeting?
That would be great. That would be great. Thank you for reminding.
Will do.
All right. Thank you, guys. If that's all, then can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Yes, I get a second.
Second.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Hennessy.
Have a good weekend.
You too.